This is your co-host, Jonathan Zimick, and we are about to begin part 2 of the Henry Lee Lucas case of Kathleen Doyle. And in this two-part series, we also cover how the FBI faked an entire field of forensic science. But before we begin, I would like to say that these episodes were recorded just a couple weeks ago, and it was obviously before the passing of Vic's son, Gregory Fizell. So I'd like to say that Vic, as well as Gregory's mother, Bernie, are still grieving. And we will be taking a little bit of a break here at the end of this year, but we will be picking up with a fresh new season at the beginning of 2020 in January. So till then, here is part 2 of the Kathleen Doyle case.
This is the Vic Fizell Show podcast, sponsored by Moroso Wood-Fired Pizzeria, Pinewood Coffee Roasters, and the law offices of Vic Fizell.
So here's the question for you then, Vic. Are they going to be punished for this?
Probably not.
Because this is crazy.
It's crazy. It's the kind of thing that Ken Anderson was doing down in Georgetown,
right,
when he prosecuted Henry for orange socks, when he prosecuted Michael Morton,
right,
and just lying about this stuff.
To get the conviction.
To get the conviction, claiming to have all these points of corroboration that were not there.
I got to tell you, from doing this podcast, Vic, and going through these articles, it's genuinely hard to have much faith in the judicial system.
It is, and I really hope...
It's so sad.
I hope that our potential jurors are listening to this podcast so that you will really hold the state to their burden of proof.
Yeah.
Not just say, oh, well, if they said it, it must be true. No, prove it to me.
Right.
Show me the science behind it. Prove it. I don't want to just take your word for it, because history is showing that your word isn't worth a damn.
Right.
When a defendant goes into court, he should be on the same level ground as the prosecutor. Matter of fact, he should have a higher ground than the prosecutor, because the prosecutor has the burden of proof.
Yeah.
You walk into court as a defendant, and you're supposed to, under our Constitution in this United States, be presumed innocent. Mm-hmm. Presumed innocent until proven guilty. But the way it usually works with jurors is that you're presumed guilty until your lawyer proves you innocent. It's not supposed to be that way. The government has the burden of proof.
Yeah.
They've got the BOP. I always call it the BOP.
Just call it the BOP.
The BOP. They got the BOP. That's when I do my voir dire, I always go, they got the BOP, the BOP, the burden of proof. They got to bring the evidence. They got to BE, bring the evidence. I do my voir dires that way. I call it Bebop Bird.
Your voir dires are great, actually.
Yeah. I'm kind of like,
do a trial.
I don't know if our listeners remember Phil Donahue, but I kind of do a voir dire the way Phil Donahue would. Put the microphone out there in front. What do you think about this? And talk about Bebop Bird.
Bebop Bird?
B-E-B. They have to bring the evidence.
Okay.
Bring evidence. Why? BOP. Because they have the burden of proof. Bird, B-Y-R-D, beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'll remind the jury during trial, have they brought you any evidence, or are they just bringing you stuff that you're supposed to speculate on?
Yeah.
So many times the cops will, and the experts are the worst. They'll just get up there and go, well, just trust me. I know.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely not. You don't have the presumption of belief from the Constitution, like this guy's got like the defendant has the presumption of innocence.
Yeah.
Why should I have to presume that this paid expert is telling the truth?
Right. And in this case, holy smokes.
And this problem doesn't stop with just the FBI or the federal prosecutors. The review focuses on the first few hundred cases involving FBI examiners, but the same mistakes and faulty testimony were likely presented in many state prosecutions that relied on between 500 and 1,000 local or state examiners who had been trained by the FBI.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so they're not only doing these wrong things themselves, but they're training their little spawn how to do it wrong.
Well, I've actually got the article in front of me too. This little one freaks me out. So the cases that they've reviewed so far include 32 defendants that have been sentenced to death. And of those defendants, 14 of them have already been executed or
Oh, my
died in
God.
prison. That's terrible. That's terrible.
Based on somebody, some bureaucrat on the government payroll, not really willing to do their job and getting up there and lying on the witness stand. Now, these experts aren't supposed to work for the police. They're not supposed to work for the prosecutor. They're supposed to work for the truth.
Right, right.
You know?
Well, who pays them, Vic?
Well, if they're FBI examiners, your government, your tax dollars are paying them.
Right.
If it's one of these that are trained and hired, the local county or the state has to pay them.
Right.
In Texas, the county has to pay them. I mean, you get a big major case, it can break a county with all the expenses of the trial. Look at what happened to McLennan County after the biker case where they arrested like 100 of them all at the same time when they had that shootout at Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. It put the county way in the hole financially.
Wow.
Because it's hard to handle that many cases.
Yeah.
And especially when you have all these damn experts you're having to pay.
Right.
And if you hire an expert and he comes in and he doesn't do that good a job, he says, well, it could be this, it could be that. Well, they're not going to hire him to come back.
Yeah.
No, they want a cheerleader. Mm-hmm. They want somebody out there waving the bloody shirt and stirring that jury up to convict that guy and sentence him to death. Well, we need to be more interested in what the truth is.
Yeah.
Not just the result.
I was going to say, we know that from doing these personal injury cases. You know, law office of Vic Vizell, you handle dominantly personal injury, car wrecks, and I can't tell you the number of trials that we've both been to where, you know, we'll have an expert for one of our clients, specifically a doctor or somebody, come in and say, I mean, this person needs surgery, and these surgeries only last for so long. Defense will throw up an expert saying, they don't need surgery at all. You know, it's way too much. And you sit there and you just go, it's like, are you kidding me?
I know.
It's insane.
And when we go to trial on a car wreck case, our doctor is the treating doctor.
Is the one who's actually treated them.
He's the one who did the surgery.
Right.
He's the one who saw them when they were hurt. And then the insurance company, and unfortunately most of our jurors don't know this because this is another legal fiction.
Oh yeah.
This pisses me off.
Please tell our listeners about this.
This is a legal fiction. We're required as lawyers to go in there and basically lie to the jury.
Yeah.
Because there's insurance, but you're not allowed to say the I word.
Right.
If you say insurance, if I walk into that courtroom and in front of that jury say the word insurance, the judge is declaring a mistrial.
Yeah.
And we're starting all over. Plus, he's probably going to hold me in contempt and fine me a bunch of money.
Yep.
You know? So we can't even mention it. And the defense lawyer comes in and goes, and they're suing poor old Mr. Jones over here who has this small company and it could go broke and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
You know, and he's
even though there's insurance, that's to be covering it.
Yeah, and his insurance is covering it all the time. And Mr. Jones sitting there in that chair, he's not the one making any decisions about his case.
None.
He's not really the client.
Right.
He's not. It's the insurance company that's the client. They hire that other lawyer.
Yep. And the only reason we ever even go to trial, Vic, is usually two things. Either there's a contesting of liability or literally the insurance company just doesn't want to pay.
And usually it's the insurance doesn't want to pay because if there's real hard liability, you know, we're to the point now to where our law firm, we don't have to take those cases.
Right.
Those cases need to be handled, but I don't want to be hiring a lot of extra people to handle them. So I have some really good lawyers that we refer cases to. We've got a great referral network, people I work with. I'm not going to say their names because I don't want you to call them first. I still want you to call me because we screen those cases really closely and got good lawyers we work with. And then the ones we keep, man, we work them.
We work them and knock them out of the park.
And then the insurance company, after we put up our treating physician, will put up somebody, some doctor, that they have on payroll, they have on retainer, who's never even seen this client.
Yeah, never evaluated the client.
They look at the x-rays, they look at the medical records, and they'll come up with some BS to say that this client isn't really hurt.
Yeah.
And they've got juries convinced that anybody who files a lawsuit is trying to win the lottery.
Yeah.
Most of them barely get enough money to pay their medical bills and their lawyers.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the truth of it.
And I'm telling you, we have put lots of money into cases before, lots to try to get justice for people that deserve it. But anyway, back to this case.
Back to this one.
Kathleen Doyle.
Kathleen Doyle.
Hairs taken and from the murder scene and matched to Henry and to Otis.
Yep.
And we probably know where Henry and Otis were at the time of this murder because of the Lucas report.
Well, we did, yeah. In the episode that we previously covered this, or just touched on, we pulled the Lucas report and found out that they were both like Florida or something at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just sad.
So what we have here is one of these 26 out of 28 FBI crime lab people, or one of these spawns that they trained to cheat like they cheat.
Right.
Saying that these hairs matched Henry and Otis when they didn't.
When they didn't.
They totally did not.
So here's my question to you then, Vic. Do you think it was, remember, this is September 11th, 1980 when it happened. So we've talked a lot about this in previous episodes where the ability to look into forensics just wasn't there yet. The technology hadn't developed yet. So do you think that's really what it was a case of, is that the technology hadn't developed yet to where they could say kind of yes or no, but there was no way to really firm it in, but the superiors were saying it's 100%.
I don't know.
Where do you think the break was in the system of getting the truth of this?
It takes a while for a science to develop.
Mm-hmm.
But while it's developing, they should be honest about the fact that it's developing. And instead of saying this hair matches, you could say it's consistent with. That means it may be, it may not be. You could either have it doesn't match, it's consistent with. I've never seen a case with a hair case where they can actually say it's a match unless they've got the root and can run DNA.
Gotcha.
And DNA is pretty new. They didn't have DNA comparison back then. They just look at the hair. Now, and this is an issue that goes across both sides of the aisle.
Okay.
Conservative and liberal, Republican and Democrat. You got people from both parties, from all walks of life, who are getting concerned about this. Justice Scalia, one of the most conservative voices on the Supreme Court of the United States, has emerged as a vocal skeptic about the risk of taint in the work of crime labs.
Wow.
He's concerned about it. On the Supreme Court, he was seeing it. Now, he's no longer with us, but he was an early skeptic of this.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness there's some kind of checks and balances that came into play. And it must be, I mean...
there really haven't been, though. That's the problem. They're not really coming into play.
It's gotten away with it this long, but thank God, the Innocence Project, which is a massive vocal leader in, exonerations and whatnot. I wonder how many cases they got to where they're like, God, if they just did this right, this guy would have been exonerated 30 years ago. So I would say you're right in that it's sad it took this long for this to happen, but I'm happy that it's finally happened.
I'm happy that it's happening, but it's not happening good enough.
Yeah.
And fast enough.
Faster.
Everybody agrees something needs to be done, but it's like these Lucas cases.
Yeah.
Who's going to do it? What's it going to be?
Right.
Senator Patrick Leahy, Democrat, Vermont, and Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson, Democrat, Texas, the ranking Democrats in the state judiciary and House science committees, are looking for forensic science reforms to hold examiners to meaningful standards.
There we go. I like that.
We need meaningful standards. But this hardly helps the folks who are in cells for crimes they didn't commit.
Yeah.
Based on evidence that, according to scientific experts, is all but worthless.
God.
Worthless. There have been some good people offer up a whole laundry list of fixes for this. They've been on the drawing board for years.
Yeah. How do you fix this?
Well, it's not that complicated. Some of the fixes could be giving the defendants their own forensic experts.
That's very wise. There you go.
It ought to happen. But the defendant never gets the same amount of money that the prosecution gets.
Right.
The judge might go, okay, well, you got 500, you got 1,000, go find somebody.
Yeah,
Where the
right.
prosecution is paying 8,000, 10,000.
Yeah, you're not going to find the best folks for 500 to
No,
1,000.
you're not.
I agree with you.
No. Another thing that we need to do is untether the crime labs from the prosecutors and cops to whom they now answer.
Right.
Make them independent.
Well, it's like you said, Vic, if I'm getting my money from the government or from the county, I mean, why wouldn't I side with the prosecutor's office?
Well, and if you're FBI, you're already leaning toward the law enforcement side of it, toward guilty. Here in Texas, we have the DPS lab.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
these are people that work for DPS. They don't want to get fired. You come out with 10 in a row saying, no, I don't think this guy did it. You're going to have your supervisor on your butt.
Right.
We don't need that. We need for these people to be independent, and we need for these results to be verified.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be one person. It should be more than one person looking at it.
Cool.
But no matter how many times we may reiterate that the status quo is intolerable, Jonathan, and that simple corrections would yield better data, there's just not any energy for this reform.
And that's crazy.
It's crazy.
Now, to me, that's just because of a lack of knowledge. I mean, this article came out in 2015, Vic. I'd never seen it. You'd never seen it.
I'd never seen it.
It's just not something in the forefront of our attention. Instead, we have, Trump's tweets are more in the forefront than the fact that you have hundreds of cases where people were convicted on something that was totally false.
I know. There's a guy named Sante Tribble, like Trouble with Tribbles. A lot of people aren't old enough to remember that. Star Trek, yeah. Sante Tribble. He served 28 years for a murder based on FBI testimony about a strand of hair. He was exonerated in 2012.
Okay.
It was later revealed that one of the hairs presented during his trial actually came from a dog.
No.
Dog. And you got an examiner up there going, yeah, this is his hair. No, that's Fido's hair. That's not his hair.
Fido's.
That's Sparky's hair.
I just feel so bad for these people, Vic. I really do. I cannot imagine the feeling of being railroaded into a murder charge like this.
I feel bad
and then
about
to find
it too.
out that it was just based on just lie.
My worst nightmare is to find out that I convicted somebody that shouldn't have been convicted.
Sure.
Now, I believe in every conviction that I've gotten while I was DA. I do, because I looked at it really, really closely. I would give the police a hard time. That's part of the reason the police didn't like me. I would not just trust them. I wanted real evidence. I wanted them to follow the law. I wanted them to touch all the bases on search warrant affidavits. I wanted it all done right. And I think we did. And if I ever find out that we did convict somebody that shouldn't have been, I'm going to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I only have had one reversal. No, two from prior cases. Both of those were, I don't want to sound like Jim Bob Darnell, but I still believe that those guys did what they were charged with.
Yeah.
One of them was Munir Deeb, one of the defendants in the Lake murder. He didn't wield a knife, but he's the one who offered the money to David Spence to kill Gail Kelly.
Right.
And then Spence went out and killed the wrong girl.
Right.
If we had wanted to frame people, we could have come up with a whole lot easier scenario than a mistaken identity murder. Oh, Deeb hired Spence to kill Gail, and he accidentally killed Jill.
Right.
He got him confused. That was hard. That was hard. We had people wanting to confess to this crime.
Yeah.
I could have taken one of those confessions like Boutwell.
Right.
Solved the Lake murder, sent him away, got it over with.
Yeah.
Now, Deeb's was reversed on a hearsay objection. I think that could have gone either way. I really do.
Okay.
But I really wish they'd have called me. I wasn't DA anymore, but I was willing to be the prosecutor on that if they wanted to hire me as a special prosecutor. Back then, I still had plenty of money. That's where the IRS came after me. I'd have done it for free. I really think I could have convicted Deeb again, but they hired two guys out of Fort Worth. And I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I know people who watched that trial, who were in that trial. Truman Simons was in that second trial. And the people that I know that watched it said they just didn't do the kind of job connecting the dots that Vic Fizell would have done.
Sure.
So,
and that's fair. That's fair.
Anyway,
What was funny about Deeb, too, he got outright, then he instantly got rearrested for trying to buy like an RPG or something, right?
yeah, some kind of bazooka or
He was
something.
trying to buy a
like that.
bazooka.
Yeah. Yeah, and he
No.
was here illegally, too.
No.
From Jordan. Yeah,
Really?
Munir Deeb. Yeah, he came here from Jordan on a student visa or something and then
just
overstayed. And then he had a prostitute from Dallas take the bus to Waco where he married her and then put her on the bus and sent her back.
No
And
way.
said, that'll keep me here. Well, and unfortunately, it did. Even after he was convicted of murder, he wasn't ever deported.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, we
So-
live in the Trump era now.
Yeah. Yeah, he'd be deported now. But I cannot believe that this poor old Mr. Tribble spent 28 years in prison based on a dog hair.
I wonder if he likes dogs. Or if he hates them now.
I don't know.
Because of you. No, because of FBI crime lab BS.
So
Well, that's-
people, make them prove it. Don't buy the BS. Keep an open mind. Just because somebody has been charged with a crime doesn't mean they're guilty. And it's not fair to say where there's smoke, there's fire. Because that's just not even true.
Okay.
A lot of people are like, well, he wouldn't have been arrested if he hadn't done something wrong. Well, I was arrested.
Yes,
I was found
you were.
not guilty. The jury held a press conference. Some of them did and said it was obvious to them the government had tried to frame me. And then I turned around, sued them all, and got the largest libel verdict in the history of the United States.
Guinness Book of World Record holder.
World record.
Do you have one of those Guinness plaque certificates somewhere?
No, I don't. Guess I
We need
should
to
have.
hit them up and get you one of those.
Yeah, I never
Because
bought
you'll
one.
see, like when someone will break a record, they'll give them like a nice. It's usually like probably 11 by 17
Yeah.
placard paper.
I don't
thing.
know if we have enough wall space.
Certificate.
We just barely had enough wall space to hang our Confession Killer poster that
Movie poster. That
Rob
seems pretty
Kinner
cool.
sent us. Yeah, and Rob Kinner and Netflix sent us the coolest poster. It's huge. It's the like a regular sized movie poster,
Yeah, it's not your little. It's not your little one.
not your little.
We should have get a
8x11.
bigger frame for it. Like, oh, this frame won't fit it. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy article you found, Vic. Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy
So-
stuff going on out there.
Well, I'm glad they arrested this guy, this Mr. Dennis Bowman. I'm glad
Yes.
they arrested him, and I'm glad he's in prison.
Give Kathleen Doyle some justice and her family.
Her family, her husband, who was serving our country at the time. So, yeah, keep Dennis Bowman locked up. Thank you for listening to the Vic Fizell Show podcast. We're a primary source podcast. We don't just read about it and then talk about it. We talk about people we've known, things we've done. We're a primary source podcast. Leave a review. Sign up for our email list. And go visit our store. We have a page on www.vicfizell.com.
He's checking your speed, he's checking it twice. You better be sober and you better drive nice. Trooper Bob's patrolling tonight. The law offices of Vic Fizell wish you a happy and laid-back holiday season. And if you've been injured by someone who wasn't driving laid back, don't call for just any lawyer. Call Vic Fizell. Drive laid back and lower your speed. 1-877 with Vic.
Principal offices in Waco and Austin, Texas.